Hello and welcome to my review and analysis of Life is Strange True Colors. Before we get started, I'd like to explain how this video will be organized. This review will be split into 5 different segments: gameplay, story, characters, some extra stuff like graphics and music, and my final thoughts on the game. This is my second time playing this game, so these are not 100% fresh opinions, but I went into this playthrough with a more analytical stance, so my thoughts are more fleshed out. This video will contain heavy spoilers for both True Colors and the first Life is Strange, so if you have not played or watched them for yourself, I highly recommend you do so. Now without further ado, let's get into the video. The core gameplay loop of True Colors is similar to the games that came before it. You walk around, look at and interact with objects and people, and make choices through dialogue or action. Most choices revolve around dialogue and focus on how you interact or treat another character. The unique thing about this game's gameplay is Alex's power. Her power allows her to see and feel the emotions of other characters. If she focuses, she can even hear their thoughts. This is used to help understand what characters are going through and how we can help them or gain information we otherwise couldn't. This is very useful for a choice-based game and is used very well throughout the story. Another thing the game uses Alex's power for is memories. This is when a specific object has an emotion of some sort attached to it. Alex then uses her power to hear the story behind it. This is used for collectibles, but mainly also for finding out why a character is feeling a certain way. One of my favorite parts of the gameplay is when it becomes an RPG, role-playing game. I'll get into why when I get to the story, but what you need to know is that there is a little segment where the town does a LARP, live action roleplay, and you go around following a quest, fighting, and doing side quests. It's a really fun and unique segment, and it's hands down one of my favorite parts of the game, and I'm so glad it was included. Overall, the gameplay is simple, but fun and very effective. Moving on to story, we'll actually be starting with this game's DLC, Wavelengths. The reason I'm starting with Wavelengths is because it takes place before the events of the game. In it, you follow Steph as she works at a record store and the town's radio station. It primarily consists of two different parts, in the booth and in the store. In the booth, you primarily answer calls, play music, and read out ads. In the store, you organize, look for things, come up with a song, come up with a D&D campaign, and some other things. There's not a main overarching story, and for the most part, it serves to flesh out Steph and some of the other characters and locations in the game. Overall, it's a cute and fun little DLC that connects to Before the Storm and further develops some of the characters in the game. Chapter 1, Side A, starts with Alex in an interview discussing how she plans on moving to live with her brother in a small town in Colorado. Dr. Lynn is worried about her move due to, as she puts it, Alex's issues. The game then cuts to Alex arriving at Haven Springs as she goes to meet her brother Gabe on the bridge. When they finally meet, we are introduced to Alex's power. She has the ability to see that her brother feels sad for missing so much of her life as they were growing up. Gabe then takes Alex on a small tour of the town. They first go to a flower shop where he gets some flowers for his girlfriend Charlotte. Their next stop is the dispensary where his girlfriend works, and Alex waits outside. While waiting, she meets Ethan, Charlotte's son, and he tells her that he plans on going into the mountains to explore the mines and asks her not to tell anyone. They then head their separate ways, and Alex makes her way to the record store. She sees Steph in the booth and then meets Ryan while browsing at the store. She wants to get something for Gabe and ends up buying a record he had on hold. When Gabe goes in the store, Alex sneaks the record into her bag so Gabe doesn't see it, while Ryan tells him that Mac is looking for him. The siblings then head outside, and Gabe talks to Ethan. After their conversation, I chose to tell Gabe that Ethan plans on heading to the mines. They then head over to the Black Lantern, a bar where Gabe works and lives. Outside, they meet Jed, Ryan's dad, and the owner of the bar. They then go inside and head up to Gabe's apartment. Gabe surprises her by saying that it's all hers as he mostly stays at Charlotte's place anyway. In return, she gives him the record. They play it and rock out, which is hands down one of my favorite parts of the game. Unfortunately, they are interrupted by a knock on the door. It turns out to be Mac who is accusing Gabe of sleeping with his girlfriend when he is actually just helping her work on her college essay. Mac starts angrily beating up Gabe. Because of how strong his anger is and how close he is to Alex, she gains his anger and lunges at him, beating him up. Gabe gets her off, but Alex accidentally hits Gabe. Mac leaves, and Gabe washes off before heading downstairs for work. Alex then cleans herself up and unpacks. Once finished, she heads downstairs to the bar where Ryan takes Gabe to get patched up. Alex meets Charlotte, and they have a nice conversation. After Charlotte heads out, Jed offers Gabe's job while he's out. She goes around taking orders and cleaning up messes. While picking up bottles in the game room, Mac approaches her and asks that she doesn't say anything to his girlfriend, who comes in shortly after. Mac lies about what happened, and in my playthrough, I told her the truth. She breaks things off, and the two of them head out. After interacting with some more people, Gabe and Ryan come back. Gabe then asks Alex to meet him on the roof, and she does. They sit and have a chat about Alex's past, and eventually they get to the point where you are given a choice to tell him about the power, which I did. While talking, Ryan comes up, saying that no one can find Ethan, and the siblings realize that he probably went off to the mines. There's supposed to be a blast going off that night, and no one is supposed to be in the area, so Gabe calls to warn that there's a child somewhere up there. They have trouble trying to locate where Ethan went, but Alex notices that some things from Ethan's comic book he made match up with real world locations, so they follow them. Eventually, Alex spots Ethan's sphere in the distance, and they rush over to find him trapped on the other side of a ridge. There is a fallen tree that connects both sides, but Ethan is too scared and the boys are too heavy to go across. Ryan ties a rope to Alex and then Gabe to use as an anchor. Alex slowly makes her way over, but the closer she gets, the more she feels his fear. She can't convince him to move, so she uses her power to see the world through Ethan's view. When she looks down, she sees the shape of a monster and understands that that is the main source of its fear. She is able to convince him to join her by saying that she has a ring of invisibility so it won't see them. They slowly make their way across and eventually make it to the other side safely. Unfortunately, sirens blare and a blast goes off. Boulders start tumbling down, and Gabe ends up getting hit by one, knocking him off the edge. Alex is still tied to him and gets pulled along with him. Ryan is able to go and grab the rope, but sees that more boulders are headed their way and cuts the rope to free Alex and bring her to safety. After the rubble stops, she runs over, looking down, and the game fades to black, ending Chapter 1. Overall, Chapter 1 is a great start to the game. It introduces us to all the characters we need to know in some way and sets up relationships very well. We get to know and like Gabe even if he's in the game for such a small amount of time. It makes us sad over his death, but also leads us to wonder why the blast went off. Chapter 2, Lanterns, picks up a couple days after the events of the first chapter at Gabe's wake in the Black Lantern. Different characters go around telling stories about Gabe and the impact he had on them. In the closing moment, Jed says it was a tragic accident, but Ryan pipes up saying it's Typhon's fault because he called, but they didn't stop the blast. Mac then says that he was working during that time and no one called. This leads to an argument between the two, and Alex heads upstairs. Steph comes up to talk to Alex to make sure she is okay, but ends up getting emotional. Alex then uses her power the same way she used it on Ethan to see all the things that were making her upset. She ends up distracting Steph with a game of foosball and lightens up her mood. After Steph leaves, Alex cleans the apartment and heads downstairs, where Jed apologizes for what happened at the wake. Alex then asks where she can find Mac because she wants to find out if what he is saying is true. Jed tells him that he might be at the flower shop, so Alex heads out to find him. While out, she goes and talks to Charlotte, who has received an affidavit from Typhon saying if she agrees to not press charges, she'll receive a big payment. And in my playthrough, I told her not to. Alex then heads into the record store to talk to Steph, who is planning on making a town-wide LARP to help cheer Ethan up. Alex creates a character and helps set up some of the details. She then finally heads into the flower shop to find Mac, but only finds Eleanor. It becomes clear to Alex that Eleanor is suffering from some sort of memory-related disease, and she helps her remember what she has done throughout the day and that Gabe has died. After leaving the flower shop, she finds Mac on the bridge and starts talking to him, and can sense that he is afraid of something. After using her power, she learns that Mac is afraid of Typhon and that he did get the call and tried to call it off, but they went through with it anyway. After Alex confronts him, he tells the truth and that Typhon is forcing him to deny the call. After her confrontation with Mac, Alex gets a call from Ryan and they meet up at the spot where Gabe died. She tries to tell him about what Max said, but Ryan is too upset at himself to care. Alex uses her power to understand why exactly he feels angry at himself and is able to calm him down. After he gets his emotions out, they talk and eventually he asks how Alex knows Mac is telling the truth, and Alex then tries to show him her power. She tells him to get emotional about something and she starts telling him what he's thinking. Ryan eventually thinks of something funny and begins to laugh about a memory he had with Gabe. She uses his powers to feel his emotions and is able to tell him what happened and then explains how her powers work. After talking a little more, the game then cuts to later that night with the acquaintances of Gabe meeting at the bridge to light a lantern. As the lantern floats into the air, she sees the joy of everyone except Diane, a girl who works for Typhon, and that ends Chapter 2. Overall, Chapter 2 sets up the mystery behind Typhon well and gives us a great look at how the characters have been affected by the loss of Gabe. Chapter 3, Monster or Mortal, starts with Alex and Ryan explaining her power to Steph. The three of them are trying to come up with a plan to get some dirt on Typhon through Diane. Alex goes to finish her shift while the other two continue to come up with a plan. After a little while, Diane comes in and Alex goes back to Steph and Ryan to see what they came up with. As it turns out, they both had the same plan. One of them will be used as a distraction by asking her on a date, while the other steals her laptop. Alex holds off that as a backup plan and decides to make a more direct approach. She gives Diane her usual and then sits down asking her questions to try to read her emotions. She's able to figure out that she has a flash drive with evidence and then calls over Steph to be a distraction. While Diane is distracted, Alex is able to grab the flash drive and the three friends make their way up into the apartment. They try to open the flash drive, but it is password protected, so they will need help to open it. They know someone who can, and Ryan heads over to give it to her. Before Ryan leaves, Steph asks Alex to get ready for the LARP, which will be happening later that day. Alex puts on a hat, grabs the guitar Gabe gave her, and heads out to meet with Ethan. They meet on a dock, but Ethan is worried that if he doesn't enjoy it, everyone will be disappointed. Alex tells him to be himself, and if he doesn't end up enjoying it, that it's okay. They then start their adventure in the park and are told by Jed, playing the king, to find 3 soul gems that will help them defeat the Age of Darkness. In this segment, the game functions more like an RPG. There is turn-based combat, spells, trading, and side quests. It is hinged on one of the most fun and unique moments of the game. At the end of their adventure, they collect the 3 stones and head back to the king, but stumble upon the Sky Sword. After fitting the stones and receiving the sword, the king appears, revealing himself as Stormrider. This starts a final boss fight, and the two end up beating him. They celebrate their victory, but unfortunately, it doesn't last long, as real-world blast sirens go off in the distance, upsetting Ethan and taking them out of the game. Alex tries to comfort Ethan, and the game cuts to later that day, with Alex going to visit Charlotte. As they talk, Charlotte begins to get upset. Alex tries to comfort her, but it only presses her anger further. Alex then decides to use her power to fully see what is going on. She sees that she blames Alex, Ryan, Gabe, and even her own son for what happened, but she hates that she feels this way. Nothing Alex is saying is able to help her, but she thinks she might be able to take away her anger. In my playthrough, I chose not to, as I wasn't sure what type of effect it would have on a person to remove their emotion and what it might do to Alex. Alex then heads back to a room where Steph and Ryan are waiting. Luckily, they are now able to get into the flash drive, so the 3 of them take a look. In it, they find calls and emails that prove Typhon knew they were up there and decided to continue with the blast to hide something called Rhea. They search further and find that Rhea was actually a second blast that was set off in their old mine to cover something up. And that ends Chapter 3. Overall, Chapter 3 served as a very fun chapter, but also one that gave us some new information that furthers our questions. Chapter 4, Flicker, picks up shortly after the events of Chapter 3. It starts with Alex calling Officer Pike, telling him that she has a USB drive that has evidence against Typhon, and he agrees to meet her shortly. Alex then gets ready for the spring festival and heads down to the park. She meets up with Steph and Ryan, who are setting up the stage for a band. Alex walks around, talking to people and having a good time. In my playthrough, I chose to take a rose and give it to Steph, essentially romancing her, and she asked me to meet on the top of the Black Lantern later that night. Eventually, Steph and Ryan finish setting up and the three talk. As it turns out, Steph is performing, but they have also volunteered Alex to perform. After the performance, Alex heads to the Black Lantern to meet with Steph. Steph informs Alex that she plans on hitting the road to do music again and wants her input. Steph then asks if Alex would like to join her. They kiss, and Steph tells Alex to just think about it. When Alex goes back out of the Black Lantern, she meets with Pike, who takes her down to the station to talk. As it turns out, Diane is pressing charges for stealing the USB. Alex tries to convince him that there is evidence on it that is more important, but he doesn't budge. She then notices that Pike has a lot of fear. When she asks why, he shows her files and photos that Typhon has of Alex, Steph, and Ryan. Alex is then presented with the choice of agreeing to the deal that Typhon won't press charges if she drops everything and gives back the USB, or she can take away Pike's fear so he will take the evidence against them. In my playthrough, I took away Pike's fear. He takes the USB and lets Alex go. She then heads back to her room and sees a note from Jed asking her to meet him when she gets the chance. She then gets changed and heads downstairs. Jed and Alex talk, and he wants to know what's going on so he can help her. She ends up telling him about the USB, and Jed says he knows what they are hiding. When Alex asks him, he says he will show her.
There, up ahead.
What am I looking at?
Where are we?
Middle of nowhere. About 2 clicks that way is the mining site where you search for Ethan. 5 clicks that way is town.
What is this thing?
Ventilation shaft. They're scattered everywhere. Over the years, mines grow into mines, creating a labyrinth under Haven. What you're searching for is down below.
Jed, why are you sad?
I'm sorry, kid.
Okay. Just put the gun down.
I tried to talk you out of it. Scare you off. I was sure those pictures of Ryan and Steph would do the trick. But you were relentless. Won't leave damn well enough alone.
You don't have to do this.
I do. 12 years ago, I made a mistake. The kind of thing that you can't undo. But Typhon made me a deal. A way to save my town. Give my boy a normal life. I never wanted Gabe to get hurt.
Go to hell.
And that is the end of Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is a short chapter, but has some of the most suspense and the biggest twist in the game. Chapter 5, Side B, starts with Alex in the same room from the beginning of the game, answering questions to Dr. Lin. She soon realizes things aren't right. She was talking to no one, and when she looks around, things aren't quite as they should be. She solves a riddle with her guitar case and wakes back up in the real world where she is lying on a beam. She tries to reach over to a ladder, but the beam breaks and she falls again. The game then cuts to Alex and Gabe in a hospital, and Alex begins to question her surroundings. Gabe tells her that she's 10, he's 14, and their mom is sick. Their dad comes out of the room and tells Alex to go see her mother. She goes in and talks to her mom, but during their conversation, a strange cut happens, and Gabe says that's not how things really happen and forces her to go back. This time, when her mom is coughing, it doesn't cut, and Alex goes and grabs water. Her mom then tells her to stay strong and to be there for their family, and then gives her a locket. The game then cuts, and Gabe and Alex are now in their old house. He tells her that she is 11 and he is almost 15. Gabe then goes outside, and she begins to hear faint arguing between Gabe and their dad. She plays some music to drown out the sound and watches as they come into the house arguing. As Alex tries to drown them out, Gabe goes up to her and tells her that's not how things really went down. This time, she doesn't put on the headphones and goes over to the door right as the two barge in. Alex tries to calm both of them down, but it doesn't work. The two eventually get physical, and their dad accidentally hits Alex. He then says he can't do this, packs some things up, and begins to leave. Alex tries to stop him and throws the locket at him. He picks it up and heads out. It then cuts to Alex waking up in an orphanage. Gabe tells her that she is 12 and he is 16. Alex looks around and talks to Gabe about the things she experienced. Eventually, she sits down and listens to all the things the parents that didn't choose her said about her. Things like she's too aggressive or troubled, or there's just something off about her. She then talks to Gabe about how she failed their family and doesn't belong anywhere. Gabe comforts her and tells her that she can change the world and to get up and fight. She then wakes up in the real world, bloody and hurt, somewhere inside a mine shaft. She is able to find a nearby lantern and slowly makes her way deeper. Her light soon dies out, but she sees a red glow in the distance. She follows it and hears the past as she gets closer. It's of Jed and a team of divers. One of them is saying that their dig is too dangerous, but Jed keeps pushing. Eventually, water rushes into the mine. Jed is then forced to make a decision to try to go back and save some of the miners who are trapped, or get out with the men he has. He chooses to leave. Alex then makes it to the source of the glow and sees that it is buried under some rocks that fell due to the hidden Typhon blast. When she gets to the item, it turns out to be the locket Gabe and Alex's dad had.
Dad.
Jed! Come back! Jed, you son of a bitch!
Chen, you gotta stop, man.
Jed! Fuck you, Jed! Come back!
It's over, Chen. He's not coming back.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
The game then cuts to Alex making her way out of the mine shaft into the town. At the town, the council is deciding on whether to sell some land to Typhon so they can expand mining efforts. But before they can vote, Alex walks in. She goes to the center and tells everyone the truth about Typhon, Jed, and how it all connects to the death of Gabe. Diane and Jed try to convince everyone that these accusations are absurd, but in my playthrough, everyone either believed Alex or at least gave her a chance to talk. An argument starts between Pike and Diane, and Alex goes to Ryan to apologize. Ryan then goes up to Jed and asks him to tell the truth. Alex then uses her powers to get everyone quiet, and then Jed solely focuses on her. She talks about why he did what he did, what he thinks of himself, who her father was, and in the end, forgives him. Jed then begins to cry and collapses onto the ground. The game then cuts to 2 days later, and Jed is in custody, and an official report has been filed against Typhon. She gets a knock at the door, and it turns out to be Steph, who confesses that she wants to be with Alex and tears up the ticket she had to go to Salem. After she leaves, Alex heads up to the roof and talks to Gabe. He tells her what he thinks will happen if she stays in Haven Springs, that she will grow old with Steph, get a new job, live a simple life, and have changed the town for the better. The game then gives us the choice between staying or leaving, and I chose to stay. The game then cuts to Alex walking down the town. The game fades to black, and credits roll, ending Chapter 5 and the game. Chapter 5 was another short chapter, but every moment in it mattered. It gave us lots of backstory to the Chen family and wrapped up the game and story beautifully. The story of Life is Strange True Colors is a mystery adventure that has strong themes of discovering oneself. It has moments of great joy and fun, but also of sadness, anger, and fear. It was a fairly short story, but every moment mattered. The story wasn't groundbreaking or the greatest thing I'd ever seen, but it was beautiful and full of heart. I was invested not only in the main mystery, but also in all the stories of the side characters. This game isn't just one story. It's the stories of all sorts of people and how their choices impact those around them. Overall, I loved what this game had to offer in terms of story. Moving on to characters, we'll be starting with the protagonist herself, Alex Chen. Alex had a lot to deal with in her life, losing her mom, her dad, getting separated from her brother, and going into the foster system. Even with the struggles that she has had, we see that she is a kind, caring, loving, and fun person. There are so many moments throughout the game where we see the best of Alex. Her interacting with Gabe, Steph, and Ryan, the LARP, interactions with a lot of the townspeople, and so much more. Even when Alex isn't bright or happy, she still doesn't stoop low. When she confronts Jed, she doesn't yell or scream or attack him, even if he deserves it. She talks calmly and analyzes and understands him, and in my playthrough chooses to forgive him. Alex starts out the game fairly shy and unsure of what exactly she wants to do in life, but throughout the game, she meets people who help her find who she is and does things that she ends up loving. She uses her powers to help people, calm them down, or embrace what they are feeling. She could easily use her powers to manipulate people, but she doesn't. Even when she does use her powers to manipulate Diane, she uses them for a good cause, to try and find the truth to what happened to Gabe. Overall, Alex is an amazing person and character who had great development and interactions. There are two versions of Gabe in this game. One is the physical, real version, and the other is the trippy sequence Gabe. The real Gabe is someone who had a rough upbringing but has changed his life around for the better. So many people loved him. He was funny and kind and brought up the people around him. We see how much he cared for others, and even though he was only in the game for a little while, he had one of the biggest impacts on Alex. He brought her to her town, gave her a home and gifts and a good time. They made us love him the way all the other characters did, and it hurt to watch him die. Even after he did die, we still learned so much about him and got to truly see the impact he had, making us love and hurt even more. The trippy sequence Gabe is kind of confusing to talk about. This series has a strange connection to those who have died and how they appear in dreams, conversations, or supernatural situations. Most of these versions of these characters seem to be some sort of conscious or subconscious of the character who is interacting with them. This is what I think makes the most sense and is generally the case. The thing is, this is a franchise that is formed around supernatural events tied to strong emotions. It's not out of the realm of possibility that these characters are some sort of afterlife, guiding force, or universal power. Whatever the case may be, the trippy sequence Gabe guides Alex through her memories. He makes her face the truth and shows her what she had to go through. He says she is strong, that she can change the world, and that all she has to do is get up and fight. The next time we see this version of him is at the very end, when he tells Alex what her future could look like in Haven Springs. And when Alex makes her choice and looks over, he's gone. Overall, Gabe is a phenomenal person and character. He cares deeply for everyone around him, and even though we only got to see him for a little while, he had one of the biggest impacts. Now moving on to our twist villain, Jed. Jed is set up to be an outstanding member in the town, after saving his crew from a mining incident. Throughout the game, we are given no reason to question him as he treats Alex and everyone else around him so well. He genuinely seems to care, and I believe he does. This makes his betrayal more surprising and also more painful. We learn the reason he does this is because he is too overconfident while mining, and his arrogance leads to the death of several men from his team. Typhon then helped him cover it, meaning he owes where he is now to them. We know he wanted to keep his family out of trouble, and this allowed them to live a normal life. We also know he does regret his actions and has forced himself to live a lie from when Alex confronts him at the end of the game. Jed made some bad decisions in the past and has spent his life since then living with his mistake and trying to build a better life for the people around him. Now moving on to Jed's son, Ryan. Ryan is primarily a comedic relief character, but he does have his fair share of serious moments. He partially blames himself for Gabe's death and is willing to do anything to find out the truth. In my playthrough, he even chose to believe Alex instead of Jed. I honestly don't have too much to say about Ryan. I just really enjoyed his character and thought he deserved his own section. Now moving on to Steph. Steph is also used as a more comedic character, but she is clearly impacted by what happened to Gabe. We see this in the apartment when we learn he is the reason that she stayed in Haven Springs. Similar to Ryan, she is also determined to find the truth to what happened to Gabe. In my playthrough, I chose to romance her. Similar to Ryan, I don't have too much to say outside of the fact that I absolutely love her character and I feel as though she deserved her own spot. Now moving on to some extra characters that I want to talk about but aren't as important. Ethan is a great kid who made a bad choice leading to Gabe's death, but without his death, the secret behind Typhon would never have been revealed. Charlotte. She is a tragic character who is definitely suffering the most from Gabe's death, and it is hard to watch. Overall, this game has some of the most realistic depictions of people I have ever seen in a game. The energy and relationships all the characters have feel amazing. The characters are one of the main reasons I love this game, and I was glad to experience all of their stories. The graphics in this game are beautiful while still having that cartoony painted look. The animation is so incredibly fluid, you can see all of the characters' facial expressions and body language. As of date, this is the best looking Life is Strange game, and I hope all the games that follow look just as good or better. This game has a very strong usage of music. It's a huge part of Alex's personality. It connects her to Gabe as well as Steph. A lot of the best moments in the game come from when the characters are interacting with music. The music itself doesn't have as much of an impact on me as Life is Strange 1 did, but overall I do think it had a better usage of it. The setting of True Colors is a small town in Colorado called Haven Springs. This is where the game spends most of its time. Unlike the other games where you're locked in one building or area at a time, this one gives you the ability to explore the town and some of the buildings as you please. This makes the area feel more alive as there are a ton of small stories happening all over the town and gives the player some extra choices and a breather between story moments. Now, I want to move on to some of the pros and cons I have with this game. Starting with my one and only real con I have with it, and it's nothing major, it's just the simple fact that the title screens of each chapter are just plain black with the title on it. I find it kind of boring. I think it could have been used just, have something nice background over it like all the other games did, as well as I would have liked to use it as thumbnails like I tried to do in episode or Life is Strange 2. But now I have nice boring the exact same photo with that tiny little thing on the top right and the number. But I digress. And hey, I'll take it. If that's my only con with the game, I'm happy. Outside of that, no real issues. So, now going on to pros, stuff I've kind of already talked about. The style is amazing, keeping that Life is Strange style. Absolutely love it. The animation, super fluid, super great. Absolutely love it. The humor, especially between Gabe, Steph, Ryan, and Alex, is top notch. It feels exactly like how a real friend group talks and interacts and jokes with one another, and it's just perfect. I liked the addition of having some kind of like mini game stuff, the foosball, the arcades, even if, it's something different, something to do. Uh, the foreshadowing in this game was great. With, uh, with the LARP, Jed was, the king, head of the castle or whatever, and he's kind of the head of the town, and then he turns out to be the bad guy in the LARP, and guess what? He turns out to be the bad guy in real life. Great foreshadowing, and I think even his tarot card has something kind of like that. It's really cool. And the LARP itself is just, it's probably my favorite part of the game. Being able to just go around, have a good time, and play, and just, it's just so fun and unique, and kind of just takes you out of the depressing kind of stuff the story has going on, which is exactly what it's trying to do with Ethan. On top of that, look, as much as I love this game's gameplay and all the gameplay Life is Strange because it works super well for what it's trying to do, it is nice to have some like real gameplay, action, combat stuff, progression, stuff I can keep track of. It is nice to have that, not bashing on the gameplay at all. It's just nice to have a little extra something. Um, the trippy scenes, love them so much. If you watch any of my other reviews, I love trippy sequences and games. This is both when Alex's power, to go and look and see what people feel, and then the world kind of turns around, of course, as well as the end, or I guess most of chapter 5, where Alex is going through her memories and whatnot. It's great. It's perfect. I love it. It does so much for character and also building up story. It does a lot to show, not tell, and it's just great. Love it. Uh, on top of that, I guess moving on to speaking of Alex's power, okay, I love Alex's power. It's something simple but effective. She can feel, see, and hear people's emotions and thoughts, and it's a cool power to have for a choice-based game. It's kind of like Max's power almost, where they can, oh, this character thinks this, says this, oh, now I can use that. So it's a interesting usage, and I do quite like it. I like this game being kind of an open world. It's not even close to an actual open world, but I like being able to, walk around, and seeing all the stories in the background is great. Like the two friends that both like each other, the guy who lost his dog, the ice cream shop owners, all of that. It's just great. And then of course this game has a nice little DLC, wavelengths. That itself was fun. It had some different gameplay, nice backstory, and lore building and stuff, and connected us to some not true colors, before the storm, which is nice to see. Because I actually played True Colors and Wavelengths before I had played Before the Storm, so I was like, oh, Steph knew Chloe, okay, or maybe did I just not know who Steph was or forgot who she was in the first game? And then going back and actually playing Before the Storm a couple months later, it's like, oh, that's Steph. Yeah, great. And so now when I finally got back to replaying this game, it's like, yeah, now I know her connection and all that, and it's great. And that's pretty much all the extra stuff I wanted to cover from this game. In conclusion, Life is Strange True Colors is a game that thrives off of the story of its characters. The overarching story is intriguing and filled with twists. Each character's personal stories to the people around them further add to that story. This game has some of the most fun characters and interactions I've ever had, with relationships that feel real. The gameplay is simple but thought out well and used wonderfully. The music adds some extra life and fun, the graphics are styled and beautiful, and you're given a setting that you can explore and change. It's probably going to be a while before I play Life is Strange True Colors again, but this game has so much that I love, and I'm glad to have been able to play it again. Thank you for watching my video. Let me know what you thought of True Colors and what you liked or disliked. I'm not involved with the wider Life is Strange community, so I would love to know what the general thoughts on this game are. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out my other reviews of the Life is Strange games, and watch out for my double exposure video when the game comes out. And once again, thank you for watching my video.